Welcome back to another episode of 5 Minute Friday. I can't think of a video that I want to make less. I had a couple people request a insurance video talking about van life insurance. My experience with van insurance has actually not been that bad. I got the van, I got the insurance, boom, it was done. And then over the last couple weeks, things have all gone a little awry. Now that I've gone through all these struggles getting insurance on the van, I really want to make a video about insurance. First off, I do think that insurance is a scam. I personally hate insurance. I hate everything that has to do with insurance. I hate thinking about insurance, and I still have to deal with it, and it's really annoying to me. So if I'm sounding a little aggravated, it's because it's been a long few weeks of dealing with just a bunch of stuff. So I'm going to try to answer some of those questions today on this 5 Minute Friday, but I do suggest you do your own research. So just stay tuned. We're going to do a story time, and I'm going to talk about the last few weeks of dealing with van life insurance. I bought this van in 2020. And I got a insurance policy with Geico. Now that I know a little bit more about this, I think that first policy was just a vehicle insurance policy. It didn't cover any of the contents or the build or anything like that. It was just literally the van itself. A few months ago, Geico sent me an email saying that they were going to renew my policy and the rate was changing. So the rate seemed a little high. I think it was like over $1,200 or so. And so I decided to do a little rate shopping. I shopped around and I ended up finding a really good price on Progressive. This was an actual RV policy, which is kind of when I realized that's probably not what I already had. And it was closer to $800 and it covered way more and it was just a better policy and it was cheaper. So really there was no question. I changed the policy over to Progressive and that was good. I get this email from them being like, we're going to cancel your insurance policy. So I'm like, why? I called in and they were like, you never sent in the photos of your RV. So I don't remember getting that message. Why? Whatever. I didn't end up sending in the photos. I didn't realize it. But she was like, if you send them in now, you'll be good. Just send in these photos. And these are like the 15 things we needed. And it's like the kitchen, the plumbing, the sink, the electrical. They're like, we're going to be in touch in 5 to 7 days. I don't hear anything. A couple weeks go by. And then I get a notification that they have canceled my insurance policy. So I call in again and I'm like, I sent in the photos. Like, what's the deal? And they were like, oh, there's a note here that says you didn't include a picture of your air conditioner. And I was like, yeah, I put a message in there that I don't have an air conditioner, so there's no photo to put in there. And they were like, yeah, in order to have an insurance policy on an RV, you need an air conditioner. Like, that's really dumb. Like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. And the guy was actually like, yeah, I agree. That is really dumb. So I did not have an insurance policy anymore. At the time, I wasn't driving the van every day because I was driving the 4Runner to and from work to run errands, things like that, and then living in the van. So I was shopping for insurance, but not really in a rush about it. Next thing I know, I get this letter really delayed after it was sent. Keep in mind, I'm a seasonal worker. I am here for the year, but my permanent address is still in Florida, where I'm from. By the time I get that mail forwarded to Utah, a lot of time passes and it's not always timely. This letter that I eventually got was from the Florida DMV, and they were basically saying, you don't have insurance, so we have suspended your driver's license. So this is where it gets complicated. My driver's license and the van registration are in Florida, but my mailing address is in Utah. So everything's a mess. I finally find out that I can surrender my license plate by overnighting it. Well, I decided to overnight it, but by sending it to Florida and then paying a $150 reinstatement fee. So to simplify things, I went and got a Utah registration, and then I forfeited my plates to Florida. And apparently after you do that, they said just go onto this website and just pay the reinstatement fee of $150 and you're good to go. But for some reason on my payment page, the payment wasn't available. They were like, you have to do this in person. I live in Utah. I'm not going to fly to Florida to go to the DMV. So my mom, thank God, stepped in. She ended up having to go to 4 different DMVs to get this handled. But long story longer. I do have my license back now, just in time to go to the North Rim of the Grand Canyon. So let's talk about the insurance itself. So like I said, I started with a Geico policy on the vehicle. Geico tends to be expensive, especially if it's an RV. When I went to Progressive, the air conditioner thing, I think that's code for we do not want to insure a DIY build. I really can't think of any other reason. Like, I don't think they're worried about my comfort. I think it's just a way to get out of cheaper DIY builds. Basically, Progressive is not going to insure an RV unless it's one of those like Winnebago builds that are like $1 million. Honestly, the savings from being on Progressive at this point, I don't even think would be worth it. I really don't want to have anything to do with Progressive anymore. Horrible experience. I just would not recommend it. Do not use Progressive. So once Progressive dropped me, I decided to go back to Geico and just see if I could get more information. Maybe I could negotiate a better price. So I called Geico back, and they were like, yeah, cool. Of course we can insure your van. Go ahead and send us the invoice from the builder that built out the van with all the specs on how it was built and, all this stuff. And I was like, I didn't use a builder, like I built it myself. And they were like, sorry, we don't want you. So if you built out the van yourself, Progressive and Geico are out. So I started doing some more research. I was reading different like van life blogs on how people are being insured. And a couple different people recommended a company called Roamly. And they are specifically made for van builds and RVs. And they actually had decent pricing. It was like priced out by the month and it was actually very comparable. They had what seemed like good benefits. So I tried to get an online quote with Roamly, but they're like, you have to call in. So I call them and he's like, one of the first questions the guy asks me is like, how many months out of the year do you live in your build? Would you say you live in the van over 6 months out of the year? So I'm kind of like quickly doing math in my head and I'm like, yeah, I guess maybe slightly over 6 months. And to that he was like, yeah, sorry, if you live in your van more than 6 months out of the year, we won't insure you. So basically, Roamly will only insure part-time travelers and van dwellers. So if you live in your van more than 6 months out of the year, Roamly will not insure you. So Roamly was out. I'm kind of running out of insurance options here. So I just kind of asked the Roamly guy, I'm like, what am I supposed to do here? I can't get insurance. And he was like, honestly, I would just call State Farm and see what they have. So that's what I did. I called up State Farm. I did an online quote. And the first quote I did was for an RV. And even though everything I'd read and the guy had recommended State Farm, at this point I just felt like I didn't have any other options. So when they asked if it was an RV build or like how much, they asked something like how much are the, extras in the van, like what is that worth or whatever. I ended up just saying there were no additions. I right now only have a vehicle insurance policy. It's still ending up about $1,200. So same if I would have just kind of stayed with Geico in the first place. I do think it would be in your best interest to get an RV policy with State Farm. I was just so paranoid to even tell them that it was anywhere near an RV because I was afraid they were going to be like, no, and then I wouldn't have any other options and I just would have a suspended driver's license. It's just been a saga. It has been a whole ordeal. And I honestly I'm exhausted from it. Like I said, I hate dealing with insurance. So I guess my point is, if you're looking for van life insurance, you live in your van more than 6 months out of the year, and if it is a DIY build, I would definitely recommend getting State Farm. Just go to State Farm. It seems like they are the most willing to work with you on getting your van insured. Geico and Progressive are a no. And with Roamly, if you live in your van more than 6 months out of the year, they don't want you either. That's what I've learned so far. But let's just kind of talk about insurance in general. I've said this a few times, so just to clarify, there are 2 different types of coverage you can get for your van. So you can get vehicle insurance. It's my understanding that the vehicle insurance will just cover like the vehicle itself as if there's nothing built out in here. So it's not going to cover the contents. It's not going to cover the build, all the like appliances and things you have in here. This is in contrast with RV insurance. RV insurance is going to cover the vehicle and the build and everything inside. Obviously, the ideal is the RV, which I believe is Class B for a van. It's going to be more expensive, and it's clearly going to be more of a pain in the butt to get it because you have to like prove a bunch of stuff. So just keep in mind that there are two different ways to insure your vehicle. One is obviously a little better and a little bit more expensive. Also keep in mind that insurance requirements vary from state to state. And I believe that state is based on where your registration is, like where your car is registered. So whatever state your van is registered in, make sure you're following their insurance rules to make sure that you are covered the way you should be. Apparently there's a way to retitle a van as an RV. I don't know if that's necessary or not, but if that is of benefit to you in your insurance journey, that's something to look into. I don't know anything about that, really. It's just something that I was reading about, and I thought that was pretty interesting. So maybe if at some point you find some insurance policy that requires it titled as an RV, just know that that is an option. If you have a personal effects coverage, like covering the things that you travel with, a good idea is to have receipts and invoices and photos of all those things, maybe even like a spreadsheet where you keep track of the prices of all those things and, you know, what you have. That way, if something does go wrong and you have to claim things, you have everything in one place. If you've ever been through like a natural disaster and you've dealt with insurance and you have to like remember all the things that you had that you need replaced, a lot of that stuff slips away from your memory. Just make sure that you're organized and you have ideally photos of all those things, but at least the receipts, documentation of all those things to make sure you can prove what you had and what they are worth. So yeah, that's pretty much all I know about insurance. I happen to be on an insurance kick right now because I've had to deal with this so much in the last few weeks. I'm in no way an expert on this. This is just stuff that I have learned within the last few weeks because I had to deal with all this. To conclude this, I'm here camping tonight in the Kaibab National Forest. I have insurance. I have a license. The van is now registered in Utah just for, I'm trying to simplify the best I can, and it seemed like it was a good idea to just switch that registration to where I am. Hopefully I can at some point change my Florida driver's license address so that things can come to me a little quicker. Thank you for watching, and I will be back soon with some more hopefully helpful content. Goodbye.